Welcome to We're Gonna Run It with Joe Lisi and Terry Bowden.
You're listening to
We're Gonna Run It.
What's your game plan?
Can they run, but will they run? If you want to run the ball, you got to give it to a guy that's a running back.
Gutless. We're gonna run it.
We're gonna play blue collar. Enjoy it. I said it. Have a little heart and have some stones.
We're gonna run it.
If you want to throw an RPO, you got to run first, pass second. That's why it's not called a PRO. It's an RPO. You got to start with a running game that puts people on their heel.
Take a look at my algo. His algo is used with all data from last year. You're so smart, you're stupid.
We're gonna run it.
And the people that believe that talking head are even stupider than what I thought. I said it.
If you want to run the ball, you got to give it to a guy that's a running back.
You got no shot to get back into the series. No shot. I said it. What's your game plan?
We're gonna run it.
Oh, baby, we are going to run it straight into week number 11 right here. New week, new optimism, and the college football rankings are now coming out, Coach. I'll give you the bottom four that just came out. Notre Dame at number 10, followed by Oregon at number 9, Texas Tech at 8, BYU at 7. There's that battle in Lubbock this weekend between the Red Raiders and the Cougars, so something will give. Texas Tech a 9.5-point home favorite in that matchup. Ole Miss checks in at number 6. I know this is a team you're very high on. They sit at 8-1. Everything is for the taking for the Ole Miss Rebels. They could go straight through the Egg Bowl and potentially be an 11-win football team and maybe even an SEC champion, depending if Georgia or Alabama potentially fall along the way with Texas A&M. The Bulldogs check in at number 5, Alabama at number 4, and then I'm assuming it will be Ohio State, Indiana, and A&M, and that's the way it'll be. It'll be A&M at number 3, Indiana at number 2, and Ohio State at the top spot, your top 10 rankings to start the college football playoff. Some thoughts about the teams that are in there?
Well, you know, it's pretty much as we have expected, although it's changing so fast up until this last game weekend where Miami got beat, Georgia Tech got beat. We're still seeing the top echelon of teams getting upset one week and coming back the next week. Texas on the rise again, you know, and so I think they're still the top 4 or 5 teams. We know who they are, and we do think they'll remain in the college football playoffs as we get towards the end of the season if things go as we would expect. But there's still a lot of jockeying that's got to go on because it's going to be some great games coming up, and there's going to be a lot of three-loss teams that are not going to make it, and some 2-loss teams that won't make it.
Yeah, there will. And the ACC is a conference that potentially has multiple one-loss teams right now.
Right.
A team like Louisville, a team like Virginia right now, they're undefeated in the conference. We know about Georgia Tech getting knocked off last week by NC State. We see right now, Duke in the top spot from the odds perspective to potentially win an ACC championship, but that could look a lot different after the next 4 weeks of the regular season. So let me ask you this, though. When you see Ohio State, Indiana, A&M, Alabama, and Georgia, and I'll throw in, because I know you're high on Ole Miss.
Well, Ole Miss is a good, fun money game.
But they're 6, Coach.
Cash.
They're 6. I mean, they only have 1 loss.
11-1 right now, or right around there.
Yeah, but in terms of the college football rankings, they're right behind Alabama and Georgia.
I agree. No, I agree.
What about this separation? That's the main question. Ohio State and Indiana, Big Ten getting all the love, and then you have 4 SEC teams from 3 to 6. Do we feel like there's that much of a separation? I don't. Obviously, I think, A&M could go in and square off against Ohio State and Indiana, respectively. I think Alabama, when Ty Simpson is on, Georgia with that offense. Ole Miss at times, hey, they took Oklahoma to the woodshed. But do you feel like there's a lot of separation between, let's just take it, Indiana and Ohio State and everybody else?
Well, the thing that those two have done, they've won decisively most every week. They don't get into this come from behind to catch up, save the game in the last minutes of the game. Probably especially Indiana, even more so than Ohio State, is that these teams, those 2 teams, have gone out and played well offensively, defensively, run game, passing game. week in and week out, and won by sizable margins. And so with the SEC, maybe it's because the competition is so much better in all the games that we play. And I know we can say that about the ACC. It's harder to tell if there is that distinction. But I have no problem having Ohio State and Indiana 1 and 2. They have played. They have done everything that they can do to deserve those spots. But when it comes head-to-head competition, I don't see a lot difference between Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, and those two. That's those five right there. And there's probably going to be 3 or 4 more by the time we get to the end of the season where you really won't be able to tell which one is better than the other.
Yeah, I think when you take 6, you could take 7 through 12, and 11 was Virginia, just so you know, and 12 was, Memphis, 8-1. So, Virginia is that team right now that's right there and it's funny because we don't see Duke in there, we don't see Georgia Tech in there, but if you look at the odds market, Duke right now has the best odds to win the ACC.
Well, they play Virginia. I mean, not this week, but next week, Virginia and Duke going to play each other, and we'll know where they stand. And there's still a lot of games like that where Texas has got to play Texas A&M, and there are still games that I think Georgia and Texas have to play still in the season. So we've got some big games that will answer some of these questions among these teams.
Yeah, and 7 and 8 BYU, like I mentioned, and Texas
week.
Tech will battle it out. You have Oregon; they have a tough road game this weekend against Iowa, so they're 6.5-point road favorites in that matchup. Again, Indiana has back-to-back road games. They beat up on Maryland as a 21.5-point favorite. They go on the road to face a team in Penn State that had a rivalry game, right? Ohio State.
Yep.
They played close for a half, and then in the second half, let go of the rope. And what are you going to do? Can Indiana go into Happy Valley and Beaver Stadium and dominate? They're a 15.5-point road favorite.
You know what? I think I know Kurt Cignetti enough that he is going to do everything he can do to beat them worse than they got beat by Ohio State. This is a game. This is a statement game in my mind. This is going to be a statement game. Because there's still those people say Indiana is Indiana. It's kind of like that Vanderbilt, but they're playing so much better. They're still Indiana, But I'm going to tell you something. If Kurt Cignetti can get that team can put as many points they can, he wants to come out of there with a larger margin of victory than Ohio State and say, there you are, fellas. They just played them last week. We played them this week. You make your mind up, but I think it's going to happen. I'm going to take the over, and I think he's going to do it. I think Penn State's got some problems.
Well, I will say this: he's never won, or the university's never won in Happy Valley during the tenure of the series.
Well,
since '93, right? So
they've never won.
They beat them They beat them with Penix a couple of years ago during the COVID year, 36-35, and we saw this situation play out with Indiana and Michigan. Michigan last year, I believe, had beaten, and I have to look back, but they had beaten Indiana, I believe it was 24 straight times. And Indiana came into that game as a 16.5-point favorite at home. They won, but didn't cover. So it could be another situation such as, they win, but don't cover. This is a heavy line for and I have to look. But it's probably the biggest line that Penn State, has been underdogs at home.
Yeah.
Maybe for the last 15, 20 years. I mean, I have to go back and look at the lines as a home dog. Maybe when Bill O'Brien was there after the Paterno situation. But so we'll see. That team could go either way. But Cignetti's done a great job. The biggest thing for Indiana right now, Coach, it's not even about covering games. It's just win. Just win and get to the Big Ten championship, and you're guaranteed a spot in the college football playoff, right? That's it.
That's common sense. I'm just telling you what I think Kurt Cignetti is all about. He everything is he is building a program, the reputation of a program. He's always thinking bigger than anybody else thinks. He always thinks more, thinking bigger. And I'm just saying just win's fine. And I'm sure after the game is over, if you got that W, no matter, you're going to justify it in the post-game press conference. I'm just saying, going into this game behind closed doors, not made and said publicly, he wants to lay it on them as much as he can,
Right.
and at least more than Ohio State. And if they don't, it's because they can't on that day.
Let me ask you about Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah.
He's playing lights out. You think he's the best quarterback in college football?
Golly, that is so hard to tell that statistically, what he does week in and week out, he's clearly playing as well as anybody. But I look how good Rourke played with Indiana last year. And I'm wondering, is this something that you jump into that system and you're part of a system that runs it well enough that you're always having a good passing situation,
right,
or their play callers have a great sense of it. But up to the way some of these other quarterbacks are playing, I don't care whether it's Ty Simpson, the way he's playing is pretty lights out. I mean, Julian at Sayer at Ohio State's throwing 80%, and why shouldn't he? They run the ball. They can't cover them. They've got so many good wide receivers. They're so far ahead. Their defense plays so well. But I think Mendoza is playing as good as anybody in the country. I'll start locking in as I start trying to pick my thoughts on who's going to win the Heisman here in the last couple. I'll go back and look at highlights of each quarterback and get a good feel. But I'm telling you, all these top 4 or 5 guys can play. When I was coaching, even in the SEC, it was such a play action game. If you threw over 50%, that was a pause. That was great. 52%, 53%, because you turned your back and faked and then threw downfield. Nowadays, if you're not throwing 70+%, you're not doing a very good job, nowadays, and keeping the interceptions low. But there's several quarterbacks, I think, along the lines of Mendoza. I just want to see how it plays out. We'll get a good idea in the next couple of weeks as they finish off playing against their competition.
Yeah, 72% completion percentage,
Yeah.
25 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He stepped up. He's mobile. He's battle tested. He's a big kid. He has no problem staying in the pocket. And to your point about Indiana's rushing attack, averaging 245 yards per
Perfect
game.
balance.
That obviously helps and allows you to stay in manageable third downs when you can pound the rock, especially on first and second down.
Right.
So we'll see exactly how it plays out. Here would be, Coach, the first round games based off tonight's rankings. Memphis, Georgia, Oregon, Texas Tech. That's a pretty good one.
Oh, that's a big one right at the first game.
Right? Oregon, Texas Tech. Let me see if I can give you the rest in the first round. Virginia, Ole Miss, and Notre Dame, BYU. That Notre Dame, BYU game would be good. Now, Notre Dame and BYU played a couple of years ago in Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. But Notre Dame is the 10th seed. BYU would be the 7th. And then you would have the winner of Georgia-Memphis square off, I believe, against Ohio State or Alabama. One of those. So that's pretty interesting right now. I actually think the Bulldogs, even though they didn't look good last week, and they got the victory in a rivalry game, I'm still banking on them down the stretch that when this college football playoff comes around, and I know that they have a long way to go. They have to face off against Georgia Tech, which is a non-conference game.
That's right.
Right after Thanksgiving. But I still believe in this team enough that I think they're going to make a run and potentially give Kirby Smart his 3rd national championship this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're as strong defensively as they were in their championship years, but they are a team that has as much talent almost as everybody in the conference. I think they have the ability, and I always use Kirby Smart as kind of the X factor. His ability to take that team, make halftime adjustments, make corrections, get them kids playing well at the end of the game, making sure he runs the football enough in the first half, even when it doesn't look like it's as successful, so that by the second half, it's pounding people and doing that part. So I've always said that I thought Georgia could be a national champion and they would have the talent level to do it. I have not been as impressed with their ability to get to the quarterback and cause pressure. We saw that with Florida. They just, for most of that game, DJ Lagway had time to throw and got away and made big plays. And that's what's got to concern you as you get into the college football playoffs, into the latter part of those, where everybody's got a heck of a quarterback that can throw that football and gifted receivers to throw it to.
Absolutely. And I think also as well, when you just look at the SEC this year, the parity from top to bottom makes each one of these games every week no longer a layup, right?
No.
Where Georgia used to be 18 and 20-point road favorites. No longer. You're seeing the spread 7.5 against Florida on a neutral field, 7.5 against Miss State. That took Texas to the wire, took a number of different teams, Tennessee to the wire, right? They didn't win those games, but they still lost only by a touchdown. So, again, there's no longer teams where you could just say, oh, that's a layup. Everybody's gunning for you each and every week.
Yeah, and I think it affects these statistics too. Some of these teams that are dominating each and every team, I do think there are the SEC from top to bottom, you're not building stats on some of your lesser opponents. You look at Mississippi State, they've almost been a thorn in their side to almost everybody they've played, almost beating them or forcing them. Kentucky is not having a good year, but they have been a hard victory for the teams that play them, and a loss to teams that wish they would have beat them, like Auburn. And that's kind of the way the conference goes. Florida, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Auburn throughout the season has been one of the best defenses in the conference. So, again, you'd have to say it's very hard to have those fantastic statistics in the run game, in the pass game, on defense, when the other teams in the conference are very, very good. And in the SEC, usually, if you're only good on one side of the ball, it's usually defense. You're going to have they're going to think defensively first in most of these programs, and then hopefully they can be dynamic on offense as well.
And we'll see exactly. Not going to be an easy game against Miss State
Nope.
right after a rivalry game, and you're talking about a team in Jeff Levy and the Bulldogs that got their first conference win last week. They were a 4.5-point dog on the road in Fayetteville. Game went right down to the wire. Blake Shapen and that team can move the football on anybody. And the way you saw DJ Lagway at times move the football on Georgia, they're going to have to, be disciplined, maintain all of the gap integrity and the running lanes, because the misdirection and the tempo potentially could get this team. And again, you never want to be caught looking ahead. They do have tougher games down the stretch, but you have to take care of business against Miss State. I like Georgia to do that, but again, it's not going to be easy. And to your point, they've started slow in recent games, and that's always a problem at the end of the regular season. You want to be, if anything, started that way, right? But by the end of the regular season, you want to be hitting on all cylinders, that at least that offense is humming.
Well, and the one thing about Georgia, there's a reason that happens a lot. Kirby Smart is consistent in his philosophy. You're going to play great defense. You're going to run the football, and then build your strength and work and overpowering another team towards the end of the game. Now, if your defense is not as good as it has been in the past, the game's staying closer. Or if the other team scores a time or two, you fall by. But he has stuck with his game plan. We're going to establish that running game. We're going to keep pounding the rock, and then we're going to mix the throw in. And by the second half, as we make adjustments and start slowing down the other team, their offense, now our offense comes in force. We can run the ball and mix in the pass. That's kind of the way Georgia plays. So I think because he's so committed to that, and having won the championships and won like he has, he's not going to lose confidence in what he's doing. He's not going to abandon ship and say, "Oh no, let's throw it every down." And so many young coaches, that's what they do. They want to go down there, and it's like a video game. They want to score as fast as they can, because they can't stand it if you got to work for something.
Right, and that's why I actually like Georgia big picture, because you saw the rushing attack take over in the second half. Bowens with the big touchdown run to give the Bulldogs the 24-20 lead. They have two running backs. Nate Frazier's come on in recent weeks. He was sidelined, or I shouldn't say sidelined, but he was basically third string after he fumbled against Georgia, and he's working his way back. He's more athletic, I believe, than Bowens. Bowens a bigger back. Right. But again, we talk about winning on the road, and the MO doesn't change, I don't believe, in big matchups. Team that runs the football, wins the turnover battle, but they'll be in it. They're
Right.
not going to get blown out if you're running the football consistently on the road. We see neutral site games, same thing, college football playoff. You go to that loss last year against Notre Dame, rushing attack was non-existent with Gunnar Stockton, right? So as long as if we're looking at these teams, big picture, right? Which team runs the football effective? Ohio State can run it, right? We see A&M now. That rushing attack is coming on. And you add in Marcel Reed and that athleticism, that's another aspect that you have to account for. Georgia does it the conventional way, right? Gunnar Stockton's mobile, but he's not like Marcel Reed. So all these teams that can run the football for 4.5 yards a carry, $190, 200, big picture are going to be there. I think, when we look at all top 12 teams and say which one realistically has a shot to win it all, right? And so I want to take it a step further. When you look at Texas, Coach, they're not running the football consistently.
No.
They have gotten a couple of great games out of Arch Manning, and they have stepped up, but they're 33-1 to win a national championship for a reason. They lost last year to Ohio State. They averaged 1.7 yards per carry. They averaged 1.3, I think, against Arizona State. And they were pushed to the limit last year. If this rushing attack can't be consistent with Wisner and C.J. Baxter, they're not going anywhere.
No. And I think I remember when I was coaching back in the 90s, 30 years ago, and everybody went to this air offense and fast break, throw. And teams that did that won a lot of ball games, but they weren't winning the championships. The teams that always end up being in the championship games were the teams that stayed with the fundamental Georgias and Ohio States and Alabamas and the teams that ran the football. And it's never really changed. So, but we do have a lot of coaches out there or head coaches that grew up under that fast break, air raid offense philosophy, and it doesn't always help and guarantee you're going to have the kind of defense you got to have. And so I think we're kind of getting back to that. You're seeing a lot more of teams understanding that if you can't run the football and play defense, you may win some against teams you're better than, but as it gets to good competition, you'll make some yardage between the 20s, but you won't score touchdowns.
All right, so let me give you Texas's average last 5 games, okay? Just on the ground, okay? 81.4 yards per game, okay? From the Florida game straight through the win at Vanderbilt. They had 52 rushing yards against Florida, 136 against Oklahoma, 47 against Kentucky, 72 against Miss State, and 100 averaging 3.7 yards per rush against the Commodores. So, and you look at this team last year, Coach, yards per carry and yards per rush. So last year, right? This year they're averaging $135 on the ground. Last year they were at 158. But you look at all the wins last year, okay? Miss State, they win 35-13. They put up $198. Yeah. Oklahoma, they win 34-3. They put up 177. You see the difference? Florida last year, they win 49-17. They pound the rock for 210 against the Gators. 250 against Kentucky last year. 240 in the win against A&M. We don't see that this year.
No.
With this, so when I look at Texas and I say, okay, is this a false sense of security? Am I going to buy into this hype? Or big picture, they get into a tough spot with the likes of Georgia, Bama, let's say in a playoff game or an SEC championship game. Are they going to come through more times than I can't buy them? And that's why I think now 7-2, okay, they got some quality wins and Arch looks good. But until I see that offensive line and that rushing attack get better, there are no bet for me.
No, and we were talking about this earlier today. I'm still not convinced that Texas maximizes their performance based on the talent they have. You look at the first half against Vanderbilt, you could see the different level of talent as Texas really was better on both sides of the ball athletically. But there was not a toughness about it. It was always a big play here, a finesse play there, a speed, a little bit better speed. And then the second half, you saw Vanderbilt come back and just execute. And I think what you're seeing is Texas. I don't know. And that's why I'm saying, well, sometimes we like to say, well, they don't have the offensive line. We debated this with LSU earlier today. Sometimes philosophically, the play caller don't have the guts to stay with a running attack. They go too much with the passing game because they want to see big results every single time. Well, there's nothing wrong with a play that just goes for 3.6 yards and doesn't go for 16. Right. And so I think that's when you see the coaches that are committed to it. That's why we talk about Kirby Smart. We talk about some of these other teams that are committed to the running attack. Ohio State is kind of weird because they're not really committed to the running attack this year. I will say this, when you're throwing 80%, you got those two wideouts that they've got.
Tate and Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, but they're not quite as committed. Of course, they don't have the running backs they had last year. You know how good
they got Bo Jackson, coach.
Yeah, I know. He's Bo Jackson. That ain't the Bo Jackson. I come from Auburn. That ain't the Bo Jackson. But I think the commitment is sometimes not being able to run the ball is because of a deep underlying philosophy of the guy that's calling them those plays. Because those linemen, I do know that if I have smart linemen with quick feet and they work good together in double teams and assignments, you can almost always run the football.
See, now they're averaging $158, which is not as dominant, obviously, for two factors. Let's call it what it is. You got a Hartline back calling plays.
Right.
Chip Kelly's gone now with the Raiders, so that's a huge attribute. And when you have Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson in the backfield, makes it a lot easier to call running plays, right? You got Bo Jackson light, right? You got Bo Jackson. The kid spells his name Bo, but, he's not 235, 40 pounds. It can run a 4.2, 140 like Big Bo Jackson back in 1984. And C.J. Donaldson's a good back, but I don't think he's anywhere where Travion and Quinshon were last year. So, we'll see exactly how this team comes into form coming around the Big Ten championship, coming around the Michigan game. That's a game, obviously, that no matter how bad Michigan is or, let's say average is this year, they haven't beaten them in 3 straight games, and that's going to be a telltale sign whether they could step up and get this victory over Sharon Moore and the Michigan Wolverines. I do want to say a game that's on the horizon that I think could be potentially a lot harder than people think. And I know A&M has won the last 2 in the series in dominating fashion, but I think this Missouri line, to me, Coach, could be live. I know they're going with Colliers, right? But they got abused, Missouri, 41-10 in College Station last year. They lost 2 years ago. That was a 5.5 point spread, if I'm not mistaken, or 3.5. I have to look it up in Columbia, 2021. Yeah. They lost 35-14. But this Faurot Field and back Columbia, I'm just telling you, I'm very impressed with Missouri's front seven. And as long as they don't turn the football over, I think that Missouri is built to play with A&M. I don't know if they win, but catching now a touchdown and a half a point, I think they could be live this weekend.
But I'll be honest with you. Who can Missouri not play with? They play that kind of football. They're always solid on defense. They always have a good, solid running attack. Their quarterbacks, big receivers, they always can run and throw the football. Right now, they went out and found a little old ULM where I was the head coach. They went out there and found Ahmad Hardy. Ahmad Hardy, and that sucker can run the football. Now, down to their third quarterback, Ahmad Hardy has to have a great game. They've got to rely on that a little bit more even to keep them in this football game. I know when I think of Missouri, I just think the coach has done such a great job. He is one of the top coaches in the country. He is one that he may never want to leave Missouri, but I tell you, he is one that I think if I was at any of these big schools, I'd at least run it by him. Because he's had 10 wins the last 3 years at Missouri, right? And that's not common at that school.
No, it's not. And I'll give you my my Missouri encyclopedia. So it's Matt Zollers. He's a freshman.
That's
I
called
him Colliers. I don't know why. It's a long day already. It's late night. But you go back and Zach Abram, Corby Jones, Brock Olivio, Brad Smith. Remember all
I
those?
remember Brad Smith. You got me on a lot of those now.
Jeremy Macklin, Blaine Gabbert. I mean, we could go on and on about Missouri football. Gary Pinkel was there. That they played a bowl game, Missouri. Again, I think it was the Independence Bowl against South Carolina. And Spurrier had them. He was whipping them 21-0 in the first half. And Brad Smith, the former Jet, came on in the second. He was running all over the field in the second half. Brad Smith was great. But that's my, Missouri football, right? So you're right. And here's the thing. I'm going to say this right now. You want to know who Auburn's next head coach should be? It should be Eli Drinkwitz.
You know what? I've said that to myself a ton. I don't know if they'll even do that. But
he beat them on the Plains a couple weeks ago. I don't think they want that.
I think if he would make it known that that's where he would be willing to go. I don't know if he knows the difficult it is to keep your job at Auburn. It's a weird place. So you got to really. We know. But he's got a good opportunity right now. I don't know. If I was Auburn, I'd go after him.
Well, let me ask you
I would go after him. I no doubt in my mind.
Let me take it a step further because you saw the press conference with the AD. Right? And you saw, hey, DJ's got 3 games. We're going to give DJ all the support. Nix is going to make the play calls. You heard DJ came out and say, I'm going to stick to my zone. And I'll just say this. DJ Durkin has done a fantastic job with that defense.
That's right.
I mean, that kid Atkins and that linebacker core and that front 7, let me tell you something. I don't care who they go up against. If this was game number 1 and they went toe-to-toe with Ohio State, I think they would shut down that offense or at least maintain them to 20 points. Right. That defense is that good. The problems, as we know, has been the offense.
Right.
But I'm going to throw out a hypothetical. DJ Durkin goes 3-0, right? They beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl. Is Durkin getting that job?
If they're leaning that way, if they're not leaning that way, they won't do it. But to me, I think he's a perfect candidate. I think he's a great candidate.
He's been a head coach before,
and I think he'll get hired because everybody in the country knows what the deal was at Auburn. They couldn't score points, and they kept playing people close for one reason, that defense. And Durkin runs the defense because we know Hugh runs the offense, and he focuses on offense. And so that means when I talk of Auburn, I said, you guys can't go wrong. And I don't know why he would have to win all the games. He got some tough games coming up. But if he can just play well, say he got Vanderbilt and Mercer, and didn't get Alabama, or he got Mercer and one of those 2, that'd be really in fact, he didn't get either of those 2.
What if how about this? Loses to Vandy, beats Mercer and Bama.
Oh, God dang. If you beat Alabama, that's a lot bigger than beating Mercer. Vanderbilt, it's a lot bigger than beating anybody because that's what they hired you. Well, you know why they hired you? Because he beat Alabama twice while he was Ole Miss. That was their one thing. When I was at Auburn, because we're in the same state as Alabama, we're consumed with Alabama and competing with Alabama and not being a little brother or the lower level team, and that's always been our fight, and that's why you're ranked by how well you do against Alabama, because if you can win the state championship at Auburn, you can win the national championship year in and year out. And that goes back years before Nick Saban to Bear Bryant and those years before that.
Well, he beat him with big bad Bo Wallace, didn't he? Bo
he
Wallace and Evan Ingram back in the day.
He had some good ones. He sure did. But anyway, I think we both agree. Eli Drinkwitz, if they can keep him in Missouri, keep him. If Auburn could get him or someone else wanted to hire one, if he can do it what he does at Missouri. And I'm not a cut on Missouri, but they don't have the athletes and the access and the history and the tradition. And I go all the way back to Warren Powers. I go way back in Missouri days, back in the 70s and 80s when I was young. But I think he's a great candidate, and I think they'll give Texas A&M a heck of a game. They're the type of team that nobody is safe when they're playing them. I just can't hardly vote. I can't hardly go for them. Because I don't know enough about the quarterback. I don't know enough about how he can play.
Yeah, back in the late 80s, early 90s, they had a 5-star athlete from Missouri, Tony Van Zandt. He had a
Yes.
knee injury. He never, I think you were at Auburn back then. 89, where were you in 89? You weren't at Auburn
No,
just
no, I
yet.
was at Samford University. That was before I got to Auburn in 93.
93, Coach of the
And
Year.
you got to remember, back when I was coaching, I never know much about except my own conference. I never watched. I never knew West Coast. I never watched Big Ten. If I was coaching in a particular conference, my focus was on my opponents and the teams that played my opponents. And I don't want you've been following these teams all your life. It's amazing. But my knowledge of football is heavy. My knowledge of all the players that played and the teams that were good. That's why I have a hard time going back 5 or 8, 10, 15 years of success of a team without doing some research.
Well, you gotta also remember in Jersey and tri-state area, you had Rutgers, and either you love or you hate Notre Dame with Lou Holtz back in the day, right? Chris Zorich in that group, Anthony Johnson, Tony Rice. I mean, either you love that group or you hated them back in the day. And that's why I used to root for the Canes to smash them when they used to get into those Bernard, Tiger, Clark. And then obviously always a fan of your dad's with Sammy Smith and Peter Tom Willis and Casey Weldon. I mean, the list goes on and on. Danny McManus, when they played Nebraska in the Fiesta Bowl. Great player. He was a Hamilton Tiger Cat, but that's it. So let me ask you. All right. And I brought this up to you earlier, but I have to pound this drum because we talk about Brian Kelly not living up to expectations.
Right.
We talk about James Franklin not living up to expectations. Hugh Freeze, right? Billy Napier. And there's never any inkling that there's any hot seat surrounding Mario Big Chest Cristobal. And again, isn't this the same situation? Isn't it? Tell me what the difference is between this situation and when Mark Richt, your good friend, in 2017 was undefeated and they lost the last regular season game to Pittsburgh and Pat Nordus. I mean, they lost 2 games now, back-to-back years, 10-3 last year. They only have 2 double-digit winning 10-win seasons, right, dating back to 2003. So when does Mario Cristobal hear the noise in the hot seat talk?
I think he's hearing it now. I think after this past week when he lost, I think he's hearing it now. Because you got to remember, in the last 2 weeks, he's lost 2 times when he was favored, and he basically tied for a half against Stanford. And so I think he's hearing it now, and I think no longer. Because remember, he is a true Miami guy. He played on the national championship team. What is it, 89, 90, right around there?
Around there, yeah.
Offensive line guy. So he is a true Miami Hurricane. The problem is he is they're now they're tired. They committed to their NIL program. They committed to their salaries for their coaches, paying the players that they can pay with the NIL, and they have been recognized for having great players, including Cam Ward. And I don't think they had the production. That last year they didn't have the defense. It did not come about in the quality of their play. This year, it's been basically losing games. They should win because of lack of a good decision making by a veteran quarterback they brought in, and a head coach who's made some calls and some decisions that they're kind of bonehead. I think they can make these and the bonehead decisions. And when you're trying to make the playoffs and you're trying to make the conference championship game, man, you can't make those kind of decisions,
Yeah, no, absolutely. So before we get into some of the breakdowns or just look ads, they gave Matt Rule the 2-year extension. Right. He goes out and loses to USC, which is incredible. Right. And then Lashley, before that Miami game, got a 7-year extension. So, I mean, Lashley, I think, made the right choice. If you like SMU and you're in that hotbed of talent in Louisiana and Texas, and you've got that train rolling, and they're willing to pay you $8-9 million at SMU, and you could get back to an ACC championship game, why would you leave?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm just saying, because Sarkisian comes out and he's like, well, coaches want security. Yeah, all right, Steve, I get that. That's if you're making 500 to $1 million, you're getting 11 million plus endorsements, and you're basically losing 2 and 3 games a year. That doesn't cut it anymore,
No.
right? Right? Like, I mean, let's call it what it is. These coaches are making huge amounts of money.
Yeah, I mean, there's no longer is this, and I, of course, being a coach and having my
Right.
brothers and my father at Power Four coaches,
Right.
There's still not a lot of sympathy because again, the net is so deep, it's so big that there is no desperate. Well, I've lost everything. I've been fired. No, you've just gotten it. You've hit the jackpot. Basically,
He got sevens. He's
you
rolling
got- you're
sevens
making
like
more-
in Atlantic City.
That's right. You got more money not to coach. And so, again, I think the biggest thing I would say is you go in with your eyes wide open. If you get a job and they pay you that kind of money, you need to win. Now, the question is these SMUs, because can they sustain that? Well, they think they can. They think they've got a head coach that can. And you know what? He's only lost one ACC game since they joined the conference.
Right.
And that's pretty dang good. And I might want to keep him around also. We didn't mention against Miami that he was their offensive coordinator, and he took about 4 of Miami's players with him to SMU. But that's just good coaching there. That's good recruiting to grab guys that are backups over there and talk them into going to SMU. But I think that's what people are trying. If they've got, if you've got a coach that's proven enough that he can do it and sustain it, then do what you can to keep him. But be careful. I mean, you got Mike Norvell down there at Florida State, and 2 losing seasons, and he had 2 big ones, and they sold the farm for him.
Right. But
And,
he got off the hot seat last week.
Yeah, no, there was no question he's off that hot seat. What I want to see is if this thing is a temporary thing, he needs to keep this thing going because it could turn on you. Clemson, it played a pretty good game too and lost, and so that'll be this will be a big one for Florida State. Big one for Mike Norvell because of where the fans want to buy in. And if they get let down now, because I think Clemson fans are they're at that bottom, it don't get much worse. But right now, Florida State, they see a glimpse of we're going to keep going and get to a bowl. Because I do think they'll go to a bowl.
Coach, 3-5 for Clemson.
Oh,
2 and 4 in the ACC, but 4 home losses.
Well, you know what?
I mean,
there are a lot of things going on. I went back after looking at this, and of course, and then I was there 19 and 20 as an analyst, and I mean they were coming off those championship years, and we played for the national championship against LSU when they won theirs, and then played for the playoffs the next year. But he won 2 national championships. There are no coaches left from those days. They're all gone. He's either the head coach, the coordinators have moved on. And the other ones he fired. He has removed a lot of those. And the biggest thing they had going for him when I was there, unbelievable chemistry. The culture wasn't just about the players. It was about the coaches and the players. Now, maybe they've lost a little of that. And I've used my father as an example. Remember when he had Chuck Amato and he had Mark Richt?
Chuck, big chest. He had big chest.
He had great staff for 15 years, and all of a sudden he lost about 4 or 5 at one time. And it took a while to build it up. And a lot of people don't pay attention. When I was at ULM, and little old ULM was the lowest budget in America. And I got Rich Rodriguez to come in as my offensive coordinator and Zach Alley as my defensive coordinator. And son of a gun, they had no wins. We went to 4. And then you know what? Rich went to Jacksonville State, and because we couldn't pay, he took 8 of my coaches with him. But they were all good coaches, and he could pay them more money. And so I don't blame him. I'm just saying I had to redo the whole thing. But sometimes it's hard to get that staffing situation. And I'm talking about Clemson. The staff is almost unrecognizable to what I remember it being when I was there. And I think Dabo's got to look at a lot of those things because, I mean, he's scratching his head last week that, that their secondary got burned. I mean, if you watch the highlights of that guy, I didn't get to watch the game. I was watching about 3 or 4 of them. And I had to go back and watch that game and watch highlights. They gave up 70-yard pass. They gave up a 43-yard pass. They gave up a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. It's just those are things that, man, those will get you beat, and that's what's happening right now. And so that you got to be careful when you have that change in the way your program is playing. That's why those home losses have come.
It will, and we'll see exactly what transpires in that game. I don't expect a huge turnout. It's a 7:00 kick. It's on the ACC network.
Yeah.
When you have 4 home losses, I think Florida State's playing a little bit with house money. Again, they're 2.5-point road dogs in this game. I think they have a quarterback in Castellanos in the rushing attack that could maybe sustain drives. Again, you gave up, I think, 194 and 4 yards a carry to Duke. What are you going to get out of Florida State? Run heavy offense, keep Klubnik on the sidelines, and let's try to ground that a win. And I just think the mindset, hey, Clemson went in expecting a college football playoff. It's gone, dead and buried. Florida State, while that thought was there when they started 3-0, they got brought back to reality really quick.
Yeah.
And now back at 500,
right.
Their theory is, hey, let's go to a bowl game. I'm not saying that's satisfying, but it's still more satisfying than being left out. So I think they'll be more dialed into this game than Clemson just walking through the motions.
Well, that's what, before the season began, I made this statement. Let me tell y'all something. I know you Florida State fans will not be happy, but the rebuilding phase is not a 13, 14 game. It's a 28 or 30 game rebuild. It's a 2-year rebuild. Get yourself moving in the right direction this year. Get yourself going to a bowl. Then you'll get the rest of it the next year. It's when you go 2-10, it's basically a 2-year rebuild. And then they won that first game and they blew out 2 nobodies, and all of a sudden expectations went wacky.
Right.
And I'm saying and so really, and now that if they can keep this trend going, it'll be exactly what I thought the season would be, a 2-year build to get back to where they want to be.
Very impressed with Oklahoma. We both picked Oklahoma. Mateer looked, maybe it wasn't statistically great, but I saw that confidence come back. I saw his running ability. I saw them run the football. I saw the defense contain Joey Aguilar for the most part. I think they have a legitimate shot to knock off Alabama. Call me crazy, but Bama plays LSU this week. They lost last year to Oklahoma. That was with Milroe.
Yeah,
that is a tough ass, Coach. After a rivalry game, even though it's in your house, having Oklahoma waltz in there coming out of a bye week.
Well, I guarantee it's going to be a tough one. And I agree with you about Oklahoma. I felt like if John Mateer could come back and play close to where he was playing before he got injured. And I'm not sure he's all the way back, but he sure looks back to me a lot more.
He's got an extra week too.
Right, and yes, and when he gets back, the guy can. And he's a grinder. He's a run and throw. He's not just a Kevin Jennings who can fire that ball down the field all over the field. He really is a guy that kind of gets the tough yardage if he has to and can make all the throws. But he's a veteran and he's got experience and he's got a coordinator that knows him, and that fits in. So I've always said, the way they've been playing defense, if they can just get him back healthy, they'll be a contender again. And so far the defense haven't let them down. The defense has been there, and now the offense is coming back the way they are. Because even at Tennessee, they may have put up yardage, but it was most of it between the 20s, and they caused 4 turnovers, and all 4, and 3 turnovers, two interceptions and a fumble. And every one of them, Oklahoma got points out of. And that's the way you win games defensively, by creating turnovers and getting points from those turnovers.
Yep. 6.5 was the win total at the start of the year. They're through that at 7-2. They have Alabama, Missouri, and LSU to round it out. Now, again, I want to see Zollers perform this week. I think Zollers is live against A&M. Right. He loses this game, he could get exposed by Oklahoma in 2 weeks.
Right.
That's what I want to see. If Zoller steps up, he knocks off A&M, then all of a sudden it's a different animal. He's playing with confidence. But if they do in fact lose, that's a tough spot for a freshman to go into Norman and potentially win that game, especially when we know how good they are in run support.
The good thing is for him is that they're starting. Was it Sam Howell? The starting quarterback the first game got hurt before Pabula went in there. The other guy, what was his name? He was starting. Got hurt the first series. Missouri lost their quarterback, and they went
Well,
to.
they were going with the dual threat.
But the other guy started the game and got hurt like the first quarter. And what I'm saying is, this freshman, he's been getting 1-2 reps the whole season. It's
Right.
not like if he's been sitting third team all year, he's not even getting any reps. It's those
Right.
first, but we know at least he's been number 2 since the very first game. And now he's not coming in completely cold. He's coming in
Right.
getting reps every week and probably a little mop up duty last series or two.
Yeah, he played against Central Arkansas. It was Prabula.
Right.
He did complete 3 of 3 Zollers for 58 yards and a touchdown. So we'll see. Key is the rushing attack from Missouri. We'll see if they can get it done. And we're going to be breaking down these games later in the week. Most likely on Thursday, we'll give our picks. We'll give our breakdowns. Just taking early looks at a lot of these games. What do you think about LSU and the mindset coming out now with this team? Frank Wilson, the interim head coach. We know a lot of the former players have been back. It's a rivalry game. They're 10.5-point dogs. I worry about LSU in this matchup. They're close to my heart. But I do worry about them in this game because it looks like that, we've seen teams like Florida, and to your point, with the interim staff come out and catch numbers and perform. But I still worry about this defense. The way they got beat up by A&M, I don't know what you're going to get on the road in Tuscaloosa this weekend. I think if you're back in LSU, you need an under, but it wouldn't shock me if Ty Simpson has a field day in this game.
Well, I mean, no, it wouldn't shock me. I don't think that's why you always have to wonder how are they going to respond to the disparity, the uncertainty, the difficult times, the uncomfort that the assistant coaches have, the reality that they may not have a job down the road. All those things are sitting there, and yet at the same time, we don't have to look very far from Florida to Virginia Tech and to even Arkansas of teams that responded to these difficult coaching changes, gave them a little juice, gave them a circle the wagons type of attitude. I see no reason why that LSU could not have that happen. Now, do we know that it will? No, we don't. But it could happen, and they are talented people, and they've got coaches that have done a lot of successful coaches. Baker has done a great job with that defense in his second year there. They've made a ton of improvements. And like Florida, they've got enough talent that any given day it can happen, because if Florida can do what they did to Georgia after losing their coach, LSU, their talent would be very similar to Florida's talent as they go into this game.
I do want to bring up the situation in Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham is given the team a whole week off in their bye week. No hitting, no practicing. He feels like they need it, and obviously unconventional. But thoughts about that, because he's a young head coach that took his team and won a Big 12 championship, took them to a college football playoff. They're still technically alive in the conference. He's going to need some help.
Right.
But the last 3 games of the regular season sort of set up for him. You think he's setting up for a stretch run where at least he knows, hey, if I do this, I have to be 3-0 to give my team a chance, right? As long as we're 3-0, we have a chance. If the chips fall in our direction, we know that BYU and Texas Tech are going to negate each other this week. One of the teams will have 1 conference loss. Arizona State has 2 right now. They do have to step up, but give me your thoughts about that, because we haven't seen it before in today's college football.
Well, I want to say that I don't think it's always presented. He made a comment to let people know what he was going to do, but I just want to tell you, and I've been a head coach 28 years in college, and my dad 54 years in college, and my brother about 30 years in college. Is it late in the season, and they've already played 9 games? The kids are tired. The kids are beat. And most veteran coaches will tell you the one thing you can't do to your team is have tired legs, is have them worn out. They need to somehow get fresh again. So I think he made a public statement about something that a lot of veteran coaches do a lot of. Late in the season, you need your kids rested. Now, he did say they will rehab, they will run, and they will lift. They'll do a little bit of running that you have to do, a little lift. They just won't do the hitting contact. What you don't want to have, your full-time coaches, They're going a full day every day, getting a great game plan. So normally, if to give you an idea what normally we would do in the off week, if we had a game on Saturday and we were off, we'd come back in and probably practice Tuesday, Wednesday, sometimes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, then let them home again. So they get a long weekend. Then they got Friday, Saturday, Sunday the next weekend. And the coaches are working everything, but maybe Saturday afternoon, the coaches will take off and go watch football games and come back Sunday afternoon. So the coaches get one little time off. But the key is it's not uncommon for the coach to let his players get rested. If Bear Bryant would have heard what he did, that would be very common. The later you get in the season, the more you don't practice with it. We don't even wear shoulder pads last 3 weeks because we wear what they call them shells.
Right, the shells.
You want to fret because you got to fret. So I think it's wise beyond his time. Now, to make a public statement, you be careful because you lose the game because the other team just beat you. Why'd you lose it? Because you didn't practice. You didn't practice that extra week. So you got to be careful about how you go out there and tell them everything you're going to do. But what he's done, I know because I've been there before. You late in the season, off week, you rest them. Early in the season, you're still trying to get better. You need rep, and you take advantage of every one of those opportunities to get to practice.
Yeah, so we'll see exactly how it plays out in a couple of weeks. A game that we didn't talk about, but
which one
you've watched, intriguing because it has ACC championship implications. Could this Wake Forest team be just got smacked around against Florida State?
Yep.
They're playing in Charlottesville this Saturday night. Now, Coach, they're catching 6.5 points, but you saw Florida State whoop them on Saturday afternoon.
Right.
It was an early game. And we saw Virginia come to Cal, and they cover and they win. This Virginia team, led by Chandler Morris, is playing lights out. They average 5 yards per rush in the win. Chandler Morris with 264. He completes 24-32. I mean, this Virginia team has Duke, Vatech, and Wake Forest as their last 3 games. But I think Wake Forest could pose a problem this week.
Oh, Wake Forest definitely can pose a problem. Wake Forest has played good all year. The new coach there has really got them playing well. They knocked off SMU that just beat Miami 13-12. And they're playing exceptionally well. And Virginia, this is kind of a Cinderella season in a lot of ways. The last 4 games, Virginia has won 2 of them in overtime, and the other 2 by a total of 3 points.
Right.
So they're finding a way to win in the last seconds against everybody on their roster. Wake Forest is going to be one of those teams that'll do the same thing. That's why I don't think you see less than a touchdown spread on this game. I think because for Virginia and for the ACC, I mean, 6 points, it's hard to win by 6 points, especially if you're Virginia. So I think this has all the makings of a great game. I'm counting on Virginia, I think, to find a way to pull out a win. I would have no problem putting Wake Forest to cover the points, but I'm not quite ready to go yet on that game. But it's going to be a tight ball game. I think FSU jumped them, and when FSU gets one step ahead of you on offense, they're going to score a ton of points. Go look at Gus Meyer. Everywhere he's ever coached, when he's on fire and his offense is clicking, he's usually going to score a ton of points. He's always number 1. He's still number 3 in the nation in total offense. He can always move the football with what he does.
We'll see. How about this other game? I want to get your take.
Yeah. Because
we didn't break down the spread. Vandy and Auburn. What do you think from the Auburn offense this week?
I don't see. I wish I could tell you who was going to call. I guess Derek Nix is going to call. Is it Derek Nix is going to call the play? But I don't know how. I can say how as he does. Is he called the plays a lot? I think it couldn't be worse. You know what? I'm afraid Vandy is going to come back. You think some people respond to a loss like they had bad? Some respond good. There's a little part of me that says Vandy's going to go back. They've got 7 wins, I think, maybe 8. If they got one more, that would be 9. That's what James Franklin did. That's that's the old special year. But that's not the year they're looking for. They're looking for something even more. And I still think they're going to go out there and I tend to think they're going to lay it on. I think they're going to probably put it on Auburn. I think Auburn's got to get over this gonna play good defense, but I think Vandy will pull ahead, and Auburn can't do anything to catch up.
We'll see. Now, Derek Nix was a great running back at Southern
Yes.
Miss. He was there with Jeff Bender, wasn't he? When is it Jeff Bender? I think I got it wrong. From Southern Miss.
That's where he played at Southern Miss.
Yeah, I got to think of the coach's name now. Jeff Bender. That's who it was. I think it was Jeff Bender. Was the I got to think now. But anyway, he might just go back to Cobb in the rushing attack. Maybe the unders in play in that game. I just think that's potentially something that you have to keep an eye out on.
I think it's going to be the under, except I'm worried that no, I tell you, Auburn's defense is so good. I was going to say Vandy might get off, but I'm thinking under, and I'm just knowing whether Auburn can keep it close enough to match that points. And I wish it would. Right now, I'm thinking Vandy's going to normally win, but I think they're going to cover.
Yeah, we'll see. Exactly.
That's my first thoughts.
I know. We'll see. We're going to break these games down. I'm just looking at Jeff Bauer. That's who.
Jeff Bauer.
Jeff Bauer. I was thinking
he was
Jeff
a former quarterback at Southern. My brother Jeff coached for him at Southern Miss way back in the early 90s.
That's who Derek Nix played with back in the day when in the Conference USA. That's when Bauer had that team, and then Fedora took over after that. So we'll see exactly how. And no real, outside the SEC, we have some big games in the ACC. We talked about the BYU Texas Tech game. No big games outside of that, Coach. I mean, more games that just teams have to win. Yeah. I mean, Iowa and Oregon's intriguing. I mean, Iowa getting no love. They weren't even ranked about a week ago. All they do is win, and it's ugly, right? But when you play defense and you run the football, that's good enough sometimes.
Yeah, I mean they're playing it like Iowa plays it. It's remarkable. Now you know why the guy has been in college football as a head coach longer than anybody else, because they play defense and they run the football. It's not pretty. They never go get a quarterback and add the other part to it, but they show you what you can do if you'll do 2 out of the 3 things you got to do. They do those well.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll break down all these games on Thursday. We'll have our best bets. Just breaking down the college football playoff rankings today for Coach Bowden. I'm Joe Lisi. We'll see you on Thursday right here on We're Gonna Run It. Have a great day, everyone. We'll talk to you on Thursday.
Thank you. All righty.